And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our marketing manager, Mallory Byers, to kick things off and introduce our presenter for today.
Hello. So excited to see so many people here today. So just a little bit about our presenter. Carly Walton is the creator of Teach Music Online, a course and community membership for studio owners. She also runs the popular podcast Teach Music Online, which focuses on business growth for studio owners. Carly attended Berklee College of Music, where she got her bachelor's degree in music education and piano performance. And she was a pioneer in the online teaching space, having first started teaching piano students online in 2013, and then traveling the world with her husband and daughter while teaching online in 2017. So welcome, Carly.
Hey, Mallory, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. So we got the cliff notes in your bio, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your musical journey.
And I just wanted to say hi to everyone that's popping on and saying hi in the chat. Thank you guys for telling us where you're watching from. It's so fun for me to see, such a global audience of teachers with teachers all over the States. I see some in Canada, I see some in England. Welcome and thank you so much. I would love to know in the chat also if this is just your first introduction to me or Teach Music Online. I'd love to know if some of you are already kind of in our space and communities, or if this is new to you. So let us know. So yes, that was a great intro. I've been teaching online for 8 years, and even before the pandemic, about a year before the pandemic, I created my first course teaching teachers how to teach online and how to shift their studios so that they could really have more flexibility. And my experience was teaching as I traveled and teaching with or traveling with my husband and one daughter at the time. We now have three girls. And we traveled and taught, and I thought, I felt even then in 2017, like there is an amazing future for tech and studios and being able to teach from anywhere, for not just the flexibility of it, but for the convenience I saw for students and for families. And I just thought, wow, offers such amazing flexibility for them. And so I created that first initial course on how to teach online in 2019. And I mean, had no idea, obviously had no idea in 2020 that teachers everywhere would need training and support and community around teaching online.
Mm-hmm. So going back a little bit, when did you first think of yourself as a teacher?
Oh, well, I started teaching piano when I was in high school. I was 16 and a neighbor asked if I could teach her 7-year-old daughter. And so I started teaching, and it was so fun to see how fun it was to teach. Up to that point, I hadn't taught. I actually went to Boston and went to Boston College first, not studying music. And I really missed music and just as a part of my life. And I thought, if I'm going to study anything, I should be studying music. It's so great. And there's so much to learn. And if I'm going to be spending hours a day studying something, it may as well be music. So that's when I applied to Berklee College of Music and started going there. And it was in my classes at Berklee where I really fell in love with teaching, with the variety in music, with jazz, with ensembles, with composition, with improv. I mean, just the world of music really opened up to me at Berklee.
Did you have any mentors in your life at that time or before? Were there any people that really shaped, you think, who you are as a musician and a teacher?
There have been so many, and I love that question, because that's something I often ask teachers to go back to when they are creating their online studios, is to think about who were your mentors and what values do you want to bring into your studio and into your training, because that's ultimately what we're passing on to students, is our philosophies, what we believe. I've had some great teachers. I had one teacher who was a Juilliard graduate, and this is in Arizona, and he runs a global choral organization now, and their focus is classical music for families and like bringing the families together and creating music. And he's just like the top of my list for for mentors and like what I love to reflect in you know how we communicate music with students and how we are being mentors and friends to them.
So once you became a teacher, what made you decide to start teaching online? Was there like a certain point where you decided it was something you wanted to do, or was it more gradual? What caused that turning point in your career?
Sure. So I was living in Boston. I was teaching at a K through 8 charter school, which I loved. I loved K through 8 music. And while I was teaching there, I was also teaching 24 students in the suburbs of Boston after school hours and at the school as well. And it was busy. I was burnt out. I thought I didn't study music to be burnt out all the time. And the school wasn't paying me very well. I was actually making double just with my students than I was with my salary at the school. So it was kind of just like, what is my future? What can I do to really feel fulfilled and feel like I'm passing that on? So I actually ended up moving to Arizona and teaching again down there and starting a studio. And while I was there, I had 2 students that I really loved who moved to Texas while I was teaching them. And I thought, this was in 2013 now. So I thought, why not? Or what if I offered them Skype lessons? And at the time it was like, Skype lessons? Like, I have no idea, what that looks like or how it would work. But they were such great students. They said, sure, let's try it. So that was like my initial step into lessons. All I had was my laptop. I didn't have any microphones, any webcams. And I taught that way for 3 or 4 years, just with my computer wherever I was. And I just set it on a stand right next to my piano. I never screen shared. I never did all of the fun things that we'll talk about with online teaching that make it so great. And it was kind of this, in those moments, I thought this is such a great solution to that burnt out teacher that I never want to be again. I always want to have the flexibility to teach whoever I want, whenever I want, wherever they live, wherever I live. I don't have to lose them when I move or when they move. And it just kind of opened up this doorway into teaching online.
What can you describe a little bit of the evolution of your online studio and how that led you to want to start your Teach Music Online business?
Yeah. So at that point, I started teaching online, and I told myself, whenever I get a new student, I'm going to offer online lessons as this alternative, something that I recommended. And so I kind of started picking up students in different states. I had family members that lived in different states, and they would tell their friends who wanted an online teacher. And at one point, I was about 50-50 online. And my husband and I, he's a photographer, and we had this idea to travel. We wanted to do photography and travel. And I thought, well, I'm a piano teacher. I don't know if that's going to work. But we thought, well, what if we transfer all of my students online? And so we have a bit of an income from that while we travel. So I had set a goal that within a year, I was going to switch over everybody to be exclusively online. And that was in 2017 that I did that. So we tested it out. We went down to Mexico for a week with some friends. And I thought, okay, this is perfect. I'm going to tell all of my students I'm online this week. And I taught with my MIDI keyboard from like a little cafe that had the internet, had a Wi-Fi connection. And I look back now, I'm like, oh my gosh. But to be honest, the students didn't know the difference. They still saw me. They still got to play their songs. They still got their assignments. And I thought, I have a lot to learn. I have a long way to go with figuring out how to do this effectively. But from the students' perspective, they're going to keep taking lessons with me. So it's worth a try.
Mm-hmm. What were some unexpected benefits that you have noticed from teaching online versus in person?
Well, I would love to hear the teachers here as well in the chat. I want to hear yours. Like, what are your benefits? Because I I always joke that we could probably collectively as a group of teachers write a book about it.
It's true.
Because there are really so many benefits. I think, being able to travel and be remote is one that's great, but you just have everything right at your fingertips. Lesson assignments, video, worksheets, music, sheet music, activities, apps, games, video demonstration from other teachers performing and teaching. And when you get yourself organized in a way where you can pull those things when you need them, it's incredible what you can offer in a lesson. I actually am now helping teachers create passive income with courses. And it's fun to think about like your best moments as a teacher. And when you are at your best, what if we can record those moments and offer them to students so that they get you at your best? And so that's a really fun thing for teachers to think about, is really monetizing their income in other ways with courses as well. Like it's really exciting being a music teacher right now. Like I think the traditional lesson, one-on-one, someone coming to your home, it won't ever go away, but it also doesn't have to be your only option for income anymore, like it used to be.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of benefits coming through in the chat. We have teachers saying convenience, keeping students when they move away, cost saving, saving miles driving, improved focus from students. That's one I've noticed as well, especially with younger students. They tend to be able to focus on a screen better than you sitting next to them in the lesson sometimes, which is kind of crazy to me. One teacher says, teaching my class online saves me 150 miles a week. When teaching online, students don't have to factor in the added time of driving to and from your house. So there really are a lot of things that maybe, I know a lot of teachers like to focus on the negatives of teaching online, but there really are so many benefits that make it totally worth it.
And I would add, I think, when I coach teachers through this transition, I hear a lot of teachers that want to teach online exclusively, but there's a lot of challenges with making that commitment, as far as what are your teaching tools? Have you pivoted to embrace online teaching? Some teachers have kind of been in the middle where they're still holding up music to the camera, or they haven't switched over to a really good video calling software. Or, I mean, there's so many tools and resources and ways to get organized so that it's really fun versus this frustration. And their teachers are in that middle ground, most of them, where they're like, oh, I have 5 online students and 20 in person, but I wish they were online. And I'm always like, then do it, then go online, then figure it out, because so many teachers are doing it and being successful with it. Just because you haven't done it yet doesn't mean you're not meant to do it, or that your students can't do it. Those are just excuses. And if you want it, we can create that for you. It's not it's working for a lot of people, I guess.
For sure. Going off of that, in 2020, a lot of us music teachers found ourselves going online just to keep the lights on, right? But now we're sort of entering this new normal, if you will. Do you think that this pandemic was a turning point in the private music industry? And what do you see the future looking like with this model of teaching online that more teachers were forced to try? Do you think that served as a turning point?
Absolutely. I find myself being this curator of tools for teachers, and I'm eyes into the world of technology with music education online. A great example is Berkeley Online, who I've worked with a little bit. The tools that they've been able to launch for learning music online have been incredible. I mean, I see new video calling platforms for online music teachers every week popping up. I'm really every week. And I always say they wouldn't be creating those if this wasn't the future of education. It's I don't know how else we would have shown the world that virtual learning is doable. than a pandemic. Like you have pockets of people that are tech savvy that tried it and used it, but because of the pandemic, everyone had to figure it out. And for those who have a positive outlook on it, it changed it all. Like someone just said in the comment, it changed everything in a really positive way. And we're not going to go backwards. You know, I have teachers who come to me that say like, well, what if they all want an in-person teacher again? And you know, there's thoughts you can have like that. And I always tell them, you might have one or two, and that's okay. Like, that's okay, because there are how many kids in the world, how many adult learners, how many ways to recruit students. And that's where we need to go. And that's who we need to market to.
For sure. So speaking of marketing, we actually did have a question pop up. What are some ways that you solicit and advertise to get students online? Yes.
So there are so many tips. I have an entire course on this. And I'll let you guys know about that. I do run a membership for online music teachers of all instruments. Most of them are piano, but we have other instrumental teachers in there as well. And we take you through like the setup and tech for online teaching, and then really dive into setting up your studio for marketing. So I'll give you a few foundational ideas that you can kind of like check off in your mind. You need to be present online. That's the very first thing. If someone Googled your name or your studio, they need to be able to find you online in multiple places. So a website, which I teach you how to build, by the way, a studio website that's like really nice looking. It should not look like a blog from the 90s or the 2000s. It can't look like a blog post. It needs to look really nice. A Google business with reviews is going to help you rank higher when people search for teachers. And then a Facebook business page. Those three things you can set up in just a couple of weeks, and they're going to make you visible online. And we have teachers now in our membership who get inquiries every single week. They don't spend any money on advertising. And really, it all comes down to putting content out that shows off their online teaching setup or value that they offer. And then having reviews helps them rank higher so that they actually are seen by people who are searching for them. Those are just a few things you can do. We also talk about collaborating with teachers, making sure you're in directories. You can talk with charter schools, with private schools. I always have teachers reaching out to students from the past and reconnecting with people to let them know you're online. Launching your studio on social media using some really creative video is great as well.
So we don't want to give everything away, but what are some what are some basic tips you would have for teachers, maybe tech wise or otherwise, for getting their online studio started?
Sure. Like the equipment setup?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let me share a slide really quick. So here is a budget setup. This is like the minimum I recommend for teachers. And you need a computer or a laptop. I recommend a laptop so you can move it around your studio if you need to, and add on to that a laptop stand. Also, we are sending out a document with links to everything on here for your equipment. An external microphone, there's different options on here. I recommend a pretty good microphone that has sound that's not just for you, but for the whole room. But there are $30 budget mics on Amazon you can find that is still an upgrade from a computer microphone. A webcam, the Logitech a 1080p webcams run around $60 on Amazon. So if you haven't gotten one yet, you need a top-down view of your piano. I think it just saves you a lot of headache from explanation if you can have that view. I know teachers that have two webcams, one on the pedal and then one top down. A mic stand and adapter, that's for your webcam, and then headphones. Any Bluetooth headphones or direct plug-in headphones really work great. You don't need to spend, in my opinion, you don't need to spend a lot on headphones. An upgraded setup, here are just a few thoughts on an upgraded setup. If you have a MIDI keyboard. So if you have something that's MIDI, meaning you can plug headphones into it. You could use your MIDI keyboard with an audio interface. So what you're transmitting to the student is the direct audio, not what the microphone is picking up from the room. And that's like such a huge next level upgrade investment for your business, because honestly, they're not going to hear anything else. They're just hearing the MIDI. And so you can get an audio interface, or the Samson G-Track Pro is a microphone that you can plug your MIDI keyboard into, and then it will feed through the microphone and your MIDI keyboard. So that's just like a really amazing way to upgrade. A mirrorless or DSLR camera is like next level. I'm on a mirrorless camera right now, so you can see how clear and high resolution that is. It's because it's a really nice camera. Mic upgrades, headphones, make sure you have a key light so that you have good lighting. If you ever feel like the video you're transmitting is low quality, it's likely because you don't have enough light in your room. So it's not well lit. And cheap webcams, computer webcams, they cannot work with low light. Like it just looks terrible. So getting a ring light in your room, or making sure you have lots of natural light, is going to change the look of your studio. If you listen to the podcast that I run, Teach Music Online podcast, you'll hear me talk a lot about making sure your setup is clean. It needs to be uncluttered and clean, especially if you are wanting to advertise to more students. If you want to build a global studio, you need a clean, nice looking space. So I have teachers who send me like before and after pictures, and it's great. They'll have like boxes everywhere in the background, or, we all get like sheet music or gifts from students on the piano. It's like, no, we need to declutter everything. If you're especially wanting to upgrade your studio, you need to have a nice looking space. The Elgato Stream Deck works great with OBS. I would love to hear in the chat if any of you have been using OBS. It's basically a way to have multi-camera view for your students. So they could see the keyboard, the sheet music, and your view all at once. And that's through OBS, but you need to have a good system, a good computer to be able to run that. You can't run that on like an older computer or laptop. It'll just kind of bog everything down. Oh, that's internet connection. So yeah, that's our upgraded setup and basic setup. Let me know if you have any other questions, but we can get to those as well.
Awesome. Just a reminder to everyone to please ask your questions in the Q&A. They fly by so fast in the chat. I know we've missed a bunch already.
Yeah.
So if you've asked a question in the chat, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A so that we can get to it that way. We've seen several in the Q&A, and I think a lot of teachers have this question. Have you found any good solutions for dealing with lag, being able to teach rhythm, play duets with students, things like that? I know that's a pain point for a lot of teachers.
So on the screen, you'll see a few tips. You may or may not have gone through all of these already. These are pretty basic. You need to be close to your router when you're teaching. If not, connect your computer Ethernet cable directly to the internet directly to the computer. Make sure you're not sharing users in the home on internet. If like you have kids on Netflix, not going to work. Most of the time you need to do it. First of all, you need to do a speed test and see what the speed of your internet is. You probably have excellent speed and your student may or may not. So I actually just had a teacher post this in our membership. She said, we were having such horrible connection with our lessons. And she was nervous. Well, she felt bad. She didn't know if she should quit lessons or let the student know. And she just got the mother on the call with her after a lesson, and they just talked through it. And she said it was really good. We did figure out that the student's internet was too slow, and they're going to work on upgrading. So more often than not, and it might be your student because they just don't have as much of a need for a high-speed internet connection as you do. The bottom tip on here is you can use your cellular data for lessons, or you just create a hotspot from your phone. I used that when we traveled. I just did a hotspot from my phone. I have Google Fi, and that was usually enough to stream lessons. The other one is to make sure you're using a really good video calling software. Let me see. Video calling software is going to change the game for your online teaching. And I'm kind of blunt about this, but if you are still using FaceTime or Google, that's not going to be a professional way to run a business. Zoom teachers still really love. So I'm not even going to say like, don't use Zoom. So I think Zoom is great, but there are also some alternatives that are fantastic. And you want to think about what you're trying to accomplish with. Is it okay if I talk about this, by the way? I just kind of rolled into that.
Yeah, no, go for it. This is great.
A lot of people like, which one's the best? Which video calling software do you recommend? And I can't recommend any because it depends on what you're using it for. Some of them don't do group calls. Some of them don't record lessons. Some of them do. So on number 3, you see what features do you need? Do you need to share video, share your iPad? What software is going to support what you're trying to accomplish? So this is just a quick comparison of really, I feel like 4 ones you can't go wrong with. There are so many great ones. Forte is a newer one and they're free. And they have a QR code so you can add a second camera right on the screen, which is really great. And they have lesson recording. So anyway, look at the screen for reference. Switch over and away from FaceTime. Like it's not okay to use FaceTime for lessons. And it's just a headache because you have to reconnect with each student. I'm just kind of looking at the questions as well.
Let's see. How do you get students to get better tech?
So that's all about your onboarding. When you onboard a new student, I recommend having a video, which I can provide you with if you're in our membership, where it teaches the student how to have the best setup possible on a budget. Really, I don't recommend they buy anything. It just talks about using the best device in the house. So sometimes a parent just doesn't know and they'll just be like, oh, you can just take lessons on your phone. You need to let them know what the best setup is. So walking them through that before lesson 1 is the key. So you don't have to have these awkward conversations. So creating like a PDF with all of the suggestions from you or a video can be really helpful for onboarding new students.
Let's see, another question that's coming up a few times is about students' posture and positions. Do you have tips for teachers setting up so that they can see their students as best as possible?
Oh, yeah. This is also, I don't have a visual for this right now, but that's also with the onboarding is teaching them where to set up the camera so that you can, it's obviously a side view so you can see their posture and positioning. You can also have the parent take videos of the student while they're playing. I have them do that like once a month so that you can just double check posture because you can't see everything from the side angle. One thing is like, do they have their heel on the ground when they're using the pedal? Little kids, like they push the pedal like this. Mm-hmm. And I can remember with some online lessons, I didn't catch that for like a year before I was like, oh, they don't even realize I didn't teach them how to, keep their heel planted for pedaling.
I noticed that too. I came back to one student in person who hadn't been using the pedal previously, and he was stomping like a cowboy, like line dancer. It was really funny. But yeah, you do have to kind of be a little more aware of what you're looking for and those things that you need to notice. But it really is a lot about that initial onboarding, education of the families. There's so many things you can catch at the beginning. That'll save you a lot. I think you're muted somehow.
Someone was mentioning that Zoom throttles. I would look into a different software like Forte, where their focus is audio, not video. That's one of the problems with Zoom or FaceTime is their focus is video. So they throttle audio, or meaning they like hold audio back because of bandwidth. So switching over to something like Forte, if there's any compromise in connection, it takes it from the video, not the audio. So, and someone's mentioning that for FaceTime's the only option. All that a parent needs to do is download an app and they're free. So I would disagree. FaceTime is never the only option. Currently it's a convenient option, but sure, it's maybe been convenient, but there's plenty of software out there that's free to use that is a better option, especially for teaching music.
Okay, let's see, what other questions do we have? And just remember to type your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat. That's the easiest place for us to catch them.
Someone asked, does direct email marketing to attract students? I think that's a great one to just bring up. If you are wanting to create any products or courses or anything down the road with your teaching, I would say it's worth starting to create an email list and do email marketing. Also, if you have plans for any kind of promotionals in your studio, like let's say in December, you want to offer 1 free month of lessons that they can gift to somebody. Those are things you would send out in email marketing. Other than that, I don't know that it's the go-to way to market. I think having a Facebook page where you are posting great content, that means you're posting videos. And really what I teach teachers to do is to share stories of your students having success, share transformation. And you're not, that way it doesn't feel like you're advertising or you're just like bragging about yourself. You're actually sharing really fantastic stories that people love to share as well. And I know we'll get asked this question, so I'll just answer it. Privacy for students is a concern for everyone. So when they join your studio, have a checkbox on the registration form that says something very simple like, do you allow us to use any photo or video for marketing at the studio and getting new students for business? If there's students already in your studio, send a text to all the parents. It doesn't need to be a big deal. You don't need to make a big deal about it. You just need to get permission.
We had a quick question about any tips you might have for lighting a dim room.
Yeah, I would order a ring light on Amazon. Order three of them and see which one you like best. You might need 2. If it's a dim room, you might need one that's like 1 on each side. If it's super dim, because you don't just want 1 light, but you probably need a light above at the keyboard and then also a light for you.
And we've gotten a few questions about, have you found that there are any instruments that are difficult or more difficult or impossible to teach online? I know your expertise is in piano, but as you're working with other teachers, are there any instruments that teachers tend to have trouble with? We got one question ahead of time from an oboe teacher who was struggling with the sound because of the pitch of the oboe.
Yes, if that's the case, I'd ask, what software are you using? Forte, they demonstrate with violins, like really high-pitched sounds and how it can still capture that, and Zoom can't necessarily. Zoom sometimes can if you mess with your audio settings, but that's harder to get the student to do. I can't think of any instrument in our membership with teachers. We have flute teachers, voice teachers, a lot of guitar. We have some drummers in there that teach online, and a lot of piano. And they all have had success. I would say the ones I'm most impressed with are voice teachers. It's just been amazing to see what they've been able to accomplish online, because their audio is so important. They need to hear tone. They need to hear every single pitch. I mean, it's amazing, and they've really been able to make it work. So if you're having trouble, please test different things. Don't write off online lessons, because you're wrong. They do work. There are tools and methods that are working. And I have a friend of mine who's in her, I think she's 80, maybe in her 70s. She was a world traveling concert pianist, and she's been teaching online for 10 years, students in Australia and New Zealand. And I always tell her, I'm always like, Irene, if you can do this and you say it's working, you're such a pioneer in this world. And she doesn't even use a lot of tech, but she's like training concert pianists in other countries. And she's been doing it way before the pandemic. So it is of the future as well. Like, it's not going anywhere.
All right. We have this question come up a couple of times too. And I know this is a question I had when I started teaching online. What about little ones? Like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds? Do you have, again, we don't want to give everything away. We want people to engage with you and take your courses, but do you have any like quick tips for how you can engage with those students and
Yes,
maybe
I
teachers who are
do.
used to being a little more hands-on, actually
Totally.
correcting students?
Yeah. And I'm so bummed. Right before this call, I was looking for my PDF where I have 10 tips for teaching new beginner students, and I
Mhm.
couldn't find it. And so I was just looking really quick.
You can send it in the email afterwards if
Sure.
you find it.
Yeah. Engagement for young ones. If they're brand new and they're between 4 to 6, they need a parent with them. I think that should be just a requirement, at least for the first 3 months of lessons. And that way the parent can direct them, because it's really hard without that. Having a basket of manipulatives, any little dice, little toys, stickers, highlighters, crayons, colored pencils, Legos. Sometimes they can put Legos on the different keys. Having some worksheets printed ahead of time that you can use in between assignments to distract them, like off the bench stuff, but you're not there. So maybe they're on the bench, but they're still able to color some stuff. That's always worked really well for me. And even easier than that, you guys, like when I was teaching beginners online way long ago, all I had was have them grab a colored pencil, and we would do all kinds of things with their music. Find all of the C's and see how many you can circle in 30 seconds. Ready, go. And I'd have a timer going. Let's see if you can draw the dominant chord on measure 10, like giving them very specific things to do and look for, versus like, let's play the song again. I have a game called Dice Games where they roll dice, and depending on what they roll, it gives them a different activity to do with their music. And it's things you would have them do anyway, but because they're rolling dice, it just kind of changes it up. So I would just get creative with the activities you have and think of how you can apply them online. One of our teachers, her name's Michelle. I'm Michelle Miller. She's in Canada. She does group online lessons for 4 to 6-year-olds.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Wow.
And she's really good at it. She has apps and things. She screen shares the whole lesson, and it's awesome.
Along those lines, someone actually did ask if you have any tips for teaching more than one student at once.
Group lessons are so amazing, and I have a lot of tips. I have an entire module on it in the course, all about how you can offer group lessons. And one quick thing is that you could try is the last week of every month, you could offer a group class instead of a one-on-one class to kind of start testing it out with your students. There are lots of things, but having some kind of a structure to your lesson, where they're doing something specific like sight reading or composition or improv. Students mute their mics, then they unmute and play for each other. It's pretty straightforward. There's so much, but I guess having a curriculum that they can all follow through. But if you did like once a month classes, you could choose just one topic to focus on with the students. And that way it's kind of like a master class, but it's not nearly as formal. They're just coming to perform for each other and then maybe learn a new skill. That's a great way to start.
Yeah, I've done that with my students too, especially when everyone was isolated. We would bring them together and have group classes, usually twice a semester, just so they can see their friends and play for them. And, we weren't having recitals, so that was another opportunity to do that too. We're getting lots of money questions.
Yeah, I just saw that.
So do you have tips for billing or ideas on how to charge for online lessons versus in person? You charge more, you charge less?
Yes. These are all really great. I'm like thinking in my head, I know I have a podcast episode on that, so you guys can go check out the podcast. It's just called the Teach Music Online Podcast. If you don't join us in the membership, at least check out the podcast where I cover a lot of these because they're common. For billing, the first thing is make sure all of your students are paying on the same platform. That's one thing teachers are like, oh, cringe about because they use PayPal and Venmo and cash and check and all kinds of things. So the first thing is to come up with a system where you can switch everyone over to automated payments. The second thing is automated payments. Same amount every single month. I know this is a conversation in our communities all the time. You take how many lessons you're teaching in the year and what the cost is and divide it into either 10 months, August through June, or August through May, or 12 months for the full year. And there are different options for makeups and cancellations and all of that. Our favorite billing software at the moment is Fonz, and I'm just putting in a link for that. I just grabbed that. I don't know if any of you use Fonz. It's similar to My Music Staff with just a little more automated features and make it really easy for the parent. They sign up for it and they never have to think about making payments. There's no invoicing involved. It just kind of skips over that. So Fonz, My Music Staff is also fantastic. There's a lot to choose from. I would find one if you have, I would say that benchmark is like 10 to 12 students or more. Any more than that, you should have something set up so that you're not manually doing payments every week. You're just wasting your time if you're trying to be an administrator with figuring out how many lessons a month per student.
All right, I'm looking through to see if we've got any more questions that tend to be more general. A lot of these are really specific, so we might answer these offline. Carly, did you have anything else that you wanted to share with this group? Just as your introduction?
Sure. Can I just show them a little bit about the membership really quick?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Explain what it is. I know a lot of you are new to us and me. So let me just show you really quick what it is. And then I do have a special kind of bonus for teachers today that are here. It's the only in-depth course. So I have courses and membership for online music teachers. So you'll see on the screen, we go through 7 phases. We talk about vision, teaching tools, setting up your marketing, automating your business, and then transforming your lessons, designing your social media plan, and then really building out your global studio. And this course is self-paced, so you can go through it as fast or as slow as you want. I have teachers that come in and they just fly through it and make all the changes that they need in a month. We have an app, so on the app is where you get access to all the lessons, all the videos, and I have specific homework assignments for every single video to help you make these changes. And in addition to that, you can also ask questions as you go along the way and comment on anything. It's very interactive. I'm not just like handing over a bunch of information. We have coaches involved as well that help teachers. Twice a month, we do coaching calls. So yesterday, we actually had a coaching call all about pricing and policies, studio policies, and we helped all of our teachers audit their studio policies. So that was really interesting because we got to share. It's very like collaborative. There's not one way to do any of this. And so that's one of the benefits to being in a community of teachers is you get to share with one another what's working. And this is just who it's for. It's not just for teaching only online, but also if you have a hybrid studio, there's a lot of crossover with building a studio. A lot of the business, marketing, methods, engagement, that's for your in-person students and your online students. So while it really helps with online, it can help if you're teaching both as well. So I'm just going to show you really quick. You also get the teacher certification course that I have that helps you get certified as an online teacher, which can help you raise your rates. I have a pro teacher directory. I have a new course for building a studio website, and this is my absolute favorite. My husband is a marketer and business guy. I've done it for many years as well, and I wanted to create templates for music teachers to kind of copy and paste so that you could make a studio website and you know it's going to actually look good and work. So I walk you through lessons on how to build every single page of your website and help you know what pages you need. We have a whole bunch of stuff in here. I'm just kind of flying through this. Coaching calls, business sessions. We have a community where you can post any time of day. It's similar to Facebook, but it's not in Facebook. It's inside our app. And it's $97 per month. And actually, this is new pricing for us. We used to have teachers commit to a full year, but new this past summer, I said, I want teachers to be able to come in, see what it's worth, come and join for a month, cancel anytime. So I don't know how long I'm going to keep that for, or you can pay in full for an entire year, and you get access to all of these things. And today, I'm actually offering a free consult with me if you do join today. So I don't usually offer that, but this was kind of a smaller group. I thought, well, if anyone today is feeling like this is exactly like a jumping point, a starting point for me for really launching your business, I will also include a Zoom call with me to help you kind of assess where you're at and point you in the right direction. So, but that's just for people watching, for if you're here and if you join. So we'll throw a link in the chat for that. But yeah, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I kind of just like flew through what I offer. Everything's in there, like from start to finish, and it's really fun. We're always adding new trainings. We have the coaching calls that are so fun, and I'm creating a new course for helping you create courses. So if you wanted to create like a guitar course or a piano course, a voice course, a theory, composition, if you want to use Finale to make sheet music and share your sheet music online or teach composition, those are all things that are going to be there as well. I think we often limit ourselves in lessons to just teaching music on the page. And that can become boring after a while to us. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. And Finale is such an amazing tool. If you haven't explored their templates, their educational tools, and then along with that is Smart Music, which is an amazing tool where you can divide up parts, you can compose, you have access to this repertoire, this library of so much music. So I just really invite you to think outside of how you were taught, really, because most of us were taught in a very traditional manner. And what other elements can we bring into our studio that make it so you can charge more? Students never leave. People share with their friends, because you're creating this well-rounded studio experience, not just this stagnant, like you come to your lesson, you play your songs, and you get a new song. Like there's so much more we can do for our students.
All right. So we've got time to answer a few more questions. Do we want to just start at the top and work our way down, or how do you want to go about this now?
Yeah.
This one's probably easy. So we have a teacher from Boston who was asking what suburbs of Boston you were teaching.
Oh, I lived in Watertown and I taught in Cambridge. So I was at St. Peter's Charter in Cambridge. Oh, there's a good one. The about a MacBook Air. So I would ask what your SSD is for your MacBook Air. I use a MacBook Air for teaching and it's fantastic, but that's with the newer chip. So any of the MacBooks with the newer M1 chip are awesome, and they're coming out with the other chip as well. So you can look more about that through Apple, but you need something that is within the last couple of years if you're wanting to run something like OBS. Oh, same thing for this, for Caitlin's.
Yeah.
how can one use an audio interface with an iPad or tablet? You can't actually. Yeah, you can't. If you want to use an audio interface, they're usually USB that need to be able to plug into a computer. You can't even really use external microphones with iPads or tablets. Sometimes you can get like a little lav mic that's engineered for an iPad that helps.
Right. Have you noticed some quality suffering with screen sharing when using OBS?
Um, Again, it depends on how fast your system is, but you would set up OBS to you would set up a view of your screen within OBS. And it's just one of your scenes. They're called scenes that you transition from. I would say actually sometimes my music looks a little bit blurry in screen share, but it's not just OBS. I think that's just screen sharing in general.
All right, we've got a question here about violin. This one's specific to the multi-camera view, but I think we did have another more general question about tips for string teachers. Do you have any experience working with string teachers?
Yeah,
Might have
I
for them?
would say get yourself two webcams, either like a computer camera and an extra webcam and a boom stand, a microphone stand to mount your camera on, and just position them so that you have two views and just play around with it. That's the best thing to do is, oh, that's actually a really great view. Sometimes they need to see your hands up here more, or they need to see the front face, like whatever it is. I don't teach violin, but I would just get yourself a webcam and a boom stand and set it up and see what works for you.
And we've gotten a few questions about playing along with students for teachers who like to play duets and things. Have you found any workarounds to, especially the trouble that Zoom can give you with trying to do that?
Yes. I There's no like magic answer or like magical code. It all comes down to internet speed and the software. So I haven't heard anyone that's able to do it on Zoom. I have heard teachers that are able to do it on Forte, Musicology, and Rock Out Loud Live. Teachers all the time that are playing simultaneously with their students, duets. But the student needs to be on a computer and you need to be on a laptop or computer. If they're on a phone or a tablet, that tends to be where the lag is. They need to be on a computer. That could be your first, like, trying to solve that.
All right, I've got some microphone questions here. I'm using a Blackmagic video switcher with a, oh, this is a tech question. Do you understand what this teacher is asking, Carly?
Oh, where? I don't see it.
The top one from John Gill in the Q&A. It says, I'm using a Blackmagic video switcher with a Focusrite digital audio interface and 7 microphones teaching
Wow.
drum that online. I guess it was just a
He's just showing off. That's
letting us
awesome.
know. Drum teachers online, that's pretty impressive. If you use Bluetooth headphones, do you notice a lag with those? And do you need to
Yeah.
get wired headphones so for there to be no
I
lag?
would just say if you have a lag, then get wired. But some teachers have it and some teachers don't. Depends on your computer.
We have someone asking about the video calling apps that you shared with us. Do they support pro audio features?
They all are pro audio. So
Yeah.
they built it to be pro audio. So
They're audio focused versus video.
yeah, I would say they don't do noise canceling because that's the problem with Zoom, is it distorts sound. So they are like the purest audio codec you can get to where you feel like you're in the same room. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I saw one. This is such a common one. How do you get parents to understand that online can be better? So this one, the best way is to show them. Show them. Either create an amazing demo video that you can send them a link to, or get them online and teach a lesson, teach a trial lesson, and show them how amazing online is and the tools you use, the music screen sharing you're using, how the student can see your hands from the top down. And often this helps. We have one teacher in Bellevue, Washington. He is a doctorate of piano, incredible, just incredible guy. And he's taught in person for years, and now he's exclusively online. And he says probably every single inquiry he gets is for in person, but he gets them on a call and he convinces them to do online. And he's never had anyone say no after that. Unless there's like, I think one person had like a disability and needed someone in person. But other than that, it's like he's able to get them on a call and show them his setup with his view of the pedal and his view of the top down, and it works. So I would say the best thing is to show them versus like trying to convince them with words.
Definitely. Let's do one more quick question and then we'll take the rest
Sure.
offline. But we'll make sure that they all get answered for you. This is just a question about your course. Can you purchase the classes or anything separately, or is it all part of the membership?
It's all in the membership. Yep, everything's all in one. I've thought for a while maybe I'd pull some of the content out, but there's just so much and so many needs for teachers that as we add content, it just gets added into the course. It's really easy to follow, but everything is in there, and you can always join and check it out. And then the other resource would be the podcast. That is free. So you can start listening to the podcast, and that will be super beneficial as we cover. I think every single question mentioned has been in a podcast episode.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Carly. If you asked a question in the Q&A that didn't get answered, we will be pulling those offline and try to get as many of those answered for you as possible. This has been really great, and we're excited to have you back.
Thank you so much, teachers. It's so fun to connect with you. You are my people. I hang out with you every day, and I just think you're doing amazing things with your students. And you have such big dreams and visions, and it's just so fun to watch you embrace technology and make changes, even though it can feel quite overwhelming at times with all the tech options and so many things to think about. So I think you're all amazing. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks.